Hi, everybody, and welcome to another episode of Circle Up and Get Real, where we talk about things that matter with people who matter. I've never gone live on YouTube before, so this is a brand new experiment for me. But what I normally do when I am recording a podcast episode is to just kind of go live and do I was going to say brain dump, but that sounds kind of disgusting. Do just kind of a stream of consciousness conversation based on what I've put out there as the topic. And today, I'm really noticing a lot of opportunities to pick a side for a lot of different contexts. And so I'm just really interested in how much we look for the sides. If you're not for this side, you must be against it. And that's just a either or kind of way of looking at things. And it feels like in this world that could be really, really polarizing. This time of year, when we're around the Super Bowl time, it's easy to say, this is my team and my team, my own personal team. Well, it's not my personal team, I wish. My Vikings, though, didn't make it. And we had a great year, but we just didn't make it. So now I have to pick another team because I don't have a lot of loyalty for any of the other teams. But I know that there are some rabid fans out there that are, if you're not for that team, then you're a bad person. No, it's not quite that bad. But I think in some of the polarizing topics that are swirling these days, there are a lot of those kinds of sentiments. And especially I'm looking at politics, and I don't want to be focused on politics all the time because the way I see it these days, it is probably the number one polarizing issue right now. And people are scared to death to say anything to anyone. That's not true because as I say that, I'm thinking about all the people who are not scared at all to say how it is, and not how it is for them, but how it is in the world. It feels like when I'm watching YouTube or I'm watching social media, there are some people out there who are really, really brave at saying, this is what is. And if you don't believe what I believe, then you're stupid. And that's mild. And I see there being huge gaps in sentiment about the subject of politics. And I am kind of, if I weren't sad about it, I would be kind of fascinated in watching this because wow, people have strong feelings. Oh my goodness. And it's certainly not kind. Kindness is missing in observation. Um, wow. And again, I say that like it's true all the time. It's not. Obviously, it's not. There are many opportunities to look for, as I just thought of Mr. Rogers. Somebody said, "Look for the kind, look for the helpers." There are a lot of people out there who do not want to play into that. Let's go that one side or the other, but we don't hear about them or we don't hear from them because it's too scary to raise your voice unless you have a really loud voice that's yelling at the other side. And by watching this and doing my best not to get involved in any of those loud sides, I think the middle needs some love because I really believe that there are far more people who would love to have a conversation about the middle, the place where we can come together, than those loud minority people who are on the outskirts. I'm just watching. I'm doing my best to be an impartial observer. And I have an opinion. I have opinions about things. And I have opinions about these people who use their platform, whatever it is, social platform, to just, I mean, it is this, and you are stupid if you don't believe this, is kind of the tone. And that's true for YouTube channels. That's true for just, there's not a lot of room for curiosity and learning, really. If I wanted to learn about politics and I wanted to learn, please help me understand your side of this. It would be really difficult to have a conversation with anybody because I think we're worried about getting stabbed in the back. I go back to Loretta Ross's TED Talk about calling in the calling out culture. And she kind of laid it out there and said, we live in a calling out culture, which is people are waiting on the outskirts to just throw a gotcha bomb at you and walk away, because either we are so insecure about our own selves that we need to make somebody else feel rotten to make ourselves feel better, or I don't know, there must be other reasons we're doing that. There's so much fear of not being in the winning camp. Boy, going back to football, I know there are a lot of fans out there. I know Philadelphia fans are really, really rabid. I have a friend whose nephew plays for the Eagles, and I know they can be kind of possessive. Is that the right word? I mean, if you're not an Eagles fan and you try to go to their stadium, it's kind of ugly for you, from what I've heard. And I guess in friendly competition that can happen. We have rivalries in a lot of organizations, a lot of not well organizations, NFL, NCAA, basketball, football, wrestling, whatever. We have a lot of rivalries, but I don't think it feels as rabid as the political rivalries feel to me right now, and it just feels really mean. It feels mean, and they're mean mean toward the people who don't believe the way the declarers believe, but mean also toward the side that isn't yours. So to use a football, this isn't true. I'm just using it as an example. But if you, and to be honest, I don't even remember who's playing each other this weekend, but before the Super Bowl. But I'll use two teams that I know aren't in it. Let's say the Packers and the Vikings, because that's a big rivalry where I live, Packers and the Vikings. Well, you're a Packers fan? You are so stupid. I can't believe you don't have any more sense than that. If you're a Packers fan, that's just ridiculous. Stupid, stupid. I'll throw eggs at your house, which would be a big deal right now because eggs are so expensive. But I mean, that just seems so silly, doesn't it? You like your Packers. That's okay. I mean, what if we don't have preferences for the teams we like to follow? Then what's the point? What's the point of buying a jersey and declaring who you're for? But I think that's the difference right there, at least in my observation. I can be for one team without having to be against the other one. I remember many years ago, a friend of mine ran for mayor in my town of Fargo, and it was a long time ago. And I liked him. He was a friend of mine, and I wanted to support him in his run for mayor. And so I would talk about my friend to other people because I liked him. But it had nothing to do with the people who he was running against. Like, the person he's running against is a crook and a liar and a thief, so you have to vote for my candidate. That doesn't make any sense to me in the way I look at the world. Yet in the world of politics, that's kind of what it's become. And I really do believe there's a place for the middle. I believe there's a place where we can say, what is best for the most people? What is, deep down, I guess I believe we know what's the right thing to do. And having a conversation about something that seems blatantly obvious to the sides, which are so far apart from each other, is kind of hard to do, because they seem to be so blind to the possibility that there could be another way of looking at it. And so when you get into that silo so deep, you don't even recognize that there's another side. Everybody thinks the way I do because that's the echo chamber you live in. And everybody hears what I say because I'm looking to find support in that way. So it could occur that the whole world sees the world the way I do because I've blocked out all of the alternative points of view. And I think that's what algorithms do. And that's the danger, unless we're willing to look for something that gives us a different alternative. Because that way we would have to learn something. We would have to say, oh man, I never thought about it from that perspective before. And that takes time and that takes effort. And it's just so much easier to throw rocks from the glass houses we live in. And I'm really, I'm trying hard not to be judgmental about this. I am really fascinated by that. The people who, since I'm not on either of the edges of this, I'm standing for the middle. And the middle is in the middle of the rocks that are getting thrown at each other. So the middle's getting beat up, which is probably why the middle's not saying much. Because wow, you can get thrown under many, many buses, many, many times a day if you raise your voice and ask a question. At least this is what I'm observing. And I've tried during this last election cycle, I tried asking questions. I really did. I wanted to know. Please help me understand this. Please let me ask you this question. It may seem stupid, it may seem silly, but I am curious. I'm genuinely curious about this because I'm doing my best to stay in conscious mode, which is above the line. This is according to the book 15 Commitments of Conscious Leadership. But above the line is open, curious, and committed to learning. And I'm doing my best to be in that space. And right now, there is so much to be curious about if you don't want to get furious, because furious and curious are really close together right now. And boy, it'd be easy to get furious. And I'm doing my best to stay curious. But the real challenge, I guess, for me in that is I don't know who to ask questions of because I haven't found the source of the truth or facts, or I don't know. There's so many opinions right now that it's really hard to know what is what is a fact. And I guess trusting my own intuition is the way I have to do that in my own discerning process. And my intuition, the way I describe intuition, is a connection to infinite intelligence. So, God, universe, call it what you will. If I use my intuition, I see that as a connection to a higher perspective, a higher way of seeing things. That's just me. I'm really, that's just me. And I would never say other people need to do that. I'm just trying to explain how I have been able to navigate this and still working on it because it's still hard. It's going to get harder. It's going to get a lot more difficult, I think, because it just feels like heels are getting dug in. And you're wrong if you don't believe the way I do is what I hear more often than tell me more about that. Okay, wait, stop. Just tell me more. Because what I hear when I ask that is, what are you, stupid? How do you not believe this? They don't say it in those terms, but that's the feeling I get. How would you ever question this? It's kind of like so obvious to the sides that they can't even imagine why anyone would think differently. And because we have so much talk on the sides, there's a lot of talk on the sides, both sides. That's where people are yelling and they're not listening. They're just yelling. They're trying to yell louder. And again, I don't mean this necessarily literally. This is how it occurs in an overwhelmed state, overwhelmed with information, with opinions. And, I've been in conversations where we know somebody has an opinion about something. I was in a group just this week where we know somebody had a different opinion than the rest of the group, but that person wasn't at the group yet or at the meeting yet. And so the people who were there said, so I know you feel the same way I do about this. So can we just say this before this other person comes? Because heaven forbid we'd have a conversation with two different opinions in one conversation, which I think would be very healthy if we could do that in a healthy manner. That's why we're so divided. Well, it's not the only reason, but it's one of the reasons we're so divided. We are so divided because we just don't know how to listen. We don't know how to ask questions that don't incite defensiveness. And because we don't know how to do that, we probably don't know how to do that because we haven't really practiced it. There's a skill to it. I was watching something on somewhere this week. It was Mel Robbins, and she was saying it's not a will, like a willpower thing. It's a skill. It's not a will gap. It's a skill gap. And so, if we could build our skills in having conversations and dialogues, again, I will say it again, a dialogue. The way I describe that is agreeing to suspend previous assumptions in order to learn from each other for the time we're together. pick up your assumptions on the way out. Please do that. But for the time we agree to be together in a dialogue, could we all see if that's even possible so that we might learn something? And then would it be even possible that we would say, holy cow, I didn't think about that. You know what? That's a super great point. I'm going to consider that. Where do you hear that? Where do you ever hear that happening? In the world? Can you imagine being in a debate and having somebody say, "Whoa, wait a second, man, that's such a good point. I hadn't thought about that. I might change my mind. Oh my gosh, what if I changed my mind? If I change my mind, do I look weak?" I mean, all of these things are just not even true. And we are so in the trenches about things that aren't even true necessarily. And we don't check our hunches because where do you check your hunch? Where do you go? Where do you go to have a conversation and a dialogue? I don't know. I don't know. But here's what I'm trying and kind of hoping can lead me in a direction. I'm going to go first. I'm going to go first. And I tried, I really did during the election season the last year. I had friends who I knew were on one side or the other, and I would say, please tell me more. Please tell me more about this. What is it that has you be in this space? And boy, there were people didn't want to do that because you get to a certain point, and I'd say, okay, great, more, please, more, please. And they'd be like, I'm out. I'm out. If you don't get it by now, I'm out. And I can draw conclusions. They're probably not true. But when you get to the end of your fact finding and you have to get into your emotions, or when you have to, examine whether or not you have all the facts, that's when you're out because it's too scary to think I might have to change my mind. I need to stand for the middle for me, for Jody, standing for the middle, which says, let me look at it from this perspective. And then let me look at it from this perspective. I'm just saying anybody listening, but if anybody would be willing to say, let me help you understand this. Let me help you understand the way I see it. That would be so amazing because I would go, okay, let me ponder that. Okay, yes. Yes. Then we could get into the space of yes and instead of yeah, but. Because yeah, but stop all of the flow of any kind of connection or creativity. Yeah, but is a stopper. And yes, and is an inviter. And what if it were possible to have those kinds of conversations that would continue even after we run out of facts? What if, man, okay, so then what? That's why I titled this today, Now What Do I Do? Because in this space of the world as I see it, what's the action to be taken when people are resistant to moving off their own way of seeing things? What's the action to be taken by a coach, facilitator, speaker, author, whatever, where my job, I guess, that my self-appointed job for the next few years is to stand for the middle? And this could be true for anything, workplaces. My boss is a jerk and he doesn't see me, blah, 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 whatever. Okay, is that true? Let's dig in a little bit more. There are so many tools out there that we could use if what we really wanted was a connection. Now, that's a big if, because I don't know if that's true. It is for me, but I don't know if it's true for a workplace or a sports team or, pick your context. If it is, though, big if, but if it is, I want to help. This is what I'm made for. I'm so clear. This is what I'm made for, to at least have people put down the weapons for a moment and say, huh, even reluctantly to say, hadn't thought about that. Boy, that's my hope, my wish, my dream, that we could have that happen in the next, I don't know, in 2025. What if somewhere someone will say, I've been calling that with some of my clients, building the fundamentals of anything. I mean, we have to have fundamentals before we can move on. If you're going back to football, if you want to know how to play football, you have to get good at the fundamentals, which are the drills and the parts of football that make the game worth playing. And fundamentals aren't all that fun typically because they're work and you don't see the outcome. But without the fundamentals or the foundation, everything's kind of wonky. And so the way I've been thinking about fundamentals lately is fun and mental with duh in the middle. And when you hear something that you go, well, duh, well, yeah, well, duh, well, then you probably hit on a fundamental, which is hard to argue. When you get to that foundational principle or that fundamental understanding where all of us could say, pizza good, or whatever, we can take off our side hats or our team jerseys and say, this is a place that we can all agree. That's a fundamental. That's a, well, duh. So that's what I'm committed to in 2025. I have no idea how I'm going to do that. I have no idea where I'm going to do that. I really don't know the how of it. Yet I can't unfeel and sense the why of it. And to me, the why of it is because the gap is getting way, 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 way too big, and people and things and ideas are going to fall into this gap, never to be seen again. And if we want ideas and creativity and connection and collaboration, if we want those things, there's got to be another way than the one that we've been witnessing and experiencing in the last, time. Pick a time. So, what if I could appreciate Jordan Love as a football quarterback, even if I'm a fan of the Vikings? What if I had the opportunity to say, that player is actually quite good? Oh, that reminds me of who is it that I really have been impressed with? The young quarterback. Oh, Washington Commanders. Whoa. I don't even watch that team, but I happened to pick up that last game, and my goodness, woof, talent. It's fun to watch good talent, regardless of the color of the jersey. So I wonder if that's a possibility. And I'm going to hold that space for that possibility to become a reality, because that's what I'm looking for. So if you've heard anything that you like here, you want to dig in more, follow me. I'd love it if you'd follow this channel. Tell other people about it. This podcast doesn't have a whole lot of followers because I don't ask. I don't ask for subscribers on YouTube. I don't know I don't know. I just assume that everybody's going to see it and like it and go, yeah. So I have to ask. Also, my new book is called It's So Simple, Just Give a Shit. It's really not difficult to care, dare to care, get real, and transform your world is the subtitle. And you can get that wherever you find books, Amazon, from me. What else? There's a lot of things that are possible if we can get out of our blinders. And I'm going to stand for that. So I hope you will join me. And you can help me by spreading this podcast too. Circle Up and Get Real wherever you get podcasts or here on YouTube. And also just do what you can this week to get real, radical, energized, authentic, learning focused. Radical is not crazy wild out there. It's getting back to the root of what makes you you. That's what radical really means, getting back to the root. And if you can get back to the root of what makes you you and own your own greatness and your own genius, oh my goodness, the world just seems to flow a lot more easily. So I appreciate your help in that. And thanks for being with me today. Take care, everybody.